So we're going to introduce our next Solutioneer team, who is Valley Metro.
Hi everybody, my name is Mia Zarnecki as our project lead for the Valley Metro team. I'm currently a junior. I'm majoring in sustainability as well as Spanish, and I've been keeping sane during quarantine by going on walks with my family.
Hi everyone, I'm Satara Gibbon, and I am a sophomore here at the School of Sustainability. During quarantine, I have been practicing yoga and trying to be outdoors as much as possible.
Hi everyone, my name is Noah Pozevsky. I am a junior studying sustainability at ASU, and I have been getting through quarantine mostly by riding my bike.
Hi everyone, I'm Sydney Millerwise. I'm a sophomore studying sustainability and minoring in biological sciences, and I've been getting through this quarantine by spending a lot of quality time with my family.
So our project partner for this was Mackenzie McGuffey, who's actually here tonight. So shout out to Mackenzie for coming, thank you. She's the sustainability coordinator at Valley Metro. And she was an amazing person to work with because she's actually a GreenLight alum. So she has a really awesome perspective of the operations at Valley Metro, as well as sustainability and how GreenLight works. So she was amazing to work with. And working with Valley Metro, when you think of the light rail or public transportation facilities in the Phoenix area, that's the kind of company we worked with. We worked on the light rail specifically.
So Valley Metro reached out to us for assistance gathering reliable research to demonstrate the importance of shade in the Phoenix metro area. So the challenge we faced with this project was understanding the climate impacts of on-transit ridership in Phoenix, evaluating and understanding the changing climate in Arizona, and especially in the coming years, as well as looking at how the built environment impacts thermal comfort.
So what our solution looked like is we wanted to develop a written report that kind of had a couple key pillars. The first one is to show the connection between shade and ridership in the Phoenix metro area. And the second is doing a climate analysis, kind of getting a firm understanding of where we have been in previous temperatures and what future projections are going to look like. And then to kind of prepare findings for the future work of Valley Metro in the space of shade and ridership.
So our vision was to create a 2 to 3 page report on all the research that we did related to heat and ridership. We also evaluated future projections of temperature and climate in Arizona.
So our mission to carry out our vision was to conduct research that demonstrates how shade structures either increase or decrease ridership on the light rail and understand the best future climate projections in Arizona. And we brought this together by synthesizing the data of specific research articles, so that way we could back up our claim about the effects on ridership and provide tangible evidence that our report offers solutions to our challenge.
So to accomplish this vision and mission, we set objectives for ourselves and key performance indicators to be able to track those. Our first objective was to synthesize our research and understand the importance of shade. And to do that, we wanted to find a minimum of 4 sources that assessed thermal comfort and ridership and shading.
Our second objective was comparing climate from the opening of the light rail stations in 2008 to current weather conditions, and then future projections as well. So the way our key performance indicator for this objective was looking at 3 sources to track climate change in Phoenix over a given time. And this was done by looking at a variety of sources, from local news all the way to NOAA. So using federal resources and local resources to gain the best understanding we could of future climate projections in Arizona.
And as we worked on these 2 objectives, to gather results, we created a survey and a report.
So as we were synthesizing the report, essentially what we were doing is conducting a literature review of a lot of really peer-reviewed and reputable sources, and I think Noah will speak really well to the first point.
Yeah, so the first part of our report was establishing a connection between thermal comfort and ridership. And this was done by looking at 2 different types of reports. So the first reports were conducted all in the Phoenix metro area and analyzing the effects of shade on ambient and surface temperatures. So ambient being the temperature of the air surrounding you, and surface temperatures being the temperature of the surface in which the sun is shining. And then we also looked at different surveys that analyzed people's thermal comfort in shaded and unshaded areas. And then when I mentioned thermal comfort, that's just somebody's satisfaction with the heat in the current area they're in. So while we do find it pertinent to point out that while this research did back up our claim that there is an effect between heat on ridership, we want to note that this does not prove causation. So just because we found all this evidence, it does not mean that there being a lack of ridership or a lack of shade rather, will decrease ridership on the Valley Metro.
Kind of the second part of that report was doing that weather analysis, and we kind of used a couple different layers to figure out general trends. The first being we looked at National Weather Service data between 1950 and current projections, and then did a statistical analysis establishing a general trend toward that temperature in Arizona heating up. Then we kind of layered that with the International Panel on Climate Change's projections, which a number of different studies have looked at the impact of that on energy bills, to water usage, to just city structure. And then we also, after seeing this gradual increase in temperature, realized that the heat in Arizona would continue increasing because of the urban heat island effect, being that the different materials we use in the built environment, like Noah was just saying, retain heat for a lot longer. So it raises all around the temperature. And then that is going to be even further compounded as the population in Arizona grows and we continue building and developing and increasing urban sprawl. So the report, all in all, just established what information there is out there and is kind of serving as a baseline for the way to do future research and continue future development in the space of shade in public transportation.
So the survey. In order to adapt to COVID-19, we created an online survey. So far, we have 17 responses, and we shared our survey on social media platforms with friends and colleagues. We asked participants what light rail station they most commonly used, and we also asked them if they wanted to see any additions to shading at the stations, if the heat ever stops them from taking the light rail, and any additional comments. So as you can see from the graphs that we made, most of our responses said that yes, they want to see improved shading at their light rail stations. We also asked them down here at the second graph is if he ever stops them from taking the light rail. And we got a few answers that said absolutely, mostly were never, but also sometimes.
In doing this project, we also recognize that we work within greater global sustainability goals, and so we wanted to connect these back to the SDGs. We identified 3 key sustainable development goals that we felt really connected to our project. The first one was number 9, in industry, innovation, and infrastructure. One of the targets for this goal identifies equitable access to infrastructure as something that should be developed. And we believe that part of this is shading and making these light rail stations, making public transportation accessible to people no matter the time of year or the climate. As well as goal number 11, sustainable cities and communities. Convenient access to public transportation is key, and this also ties back into climate. Making sure that people can access the light rail no matter the time of year is essential. And as far as climate action, goal number 13, adapting to climate change, we believe that creating shading structures and creating a resilient public transportation system is key in adapting to future climate.
So how can you help and how you can be involved? Complete our survey, and this QR code here links you to that survey. It'll be shown later, and ride public transit.
So kind of in summation here, the outcome of all of our work was to establish this climate impact report, serving as a baseline for future work that Valley Metro is planning on doing, as well as the start of this Google Form data, analyzing different ridership information around shade. And kind of for future steps with this project, Valley Metro has received the Healthy Urban Environments, or the HUE grant, which is going to continue allowing them to do research in this space. We are going to continue serving light rail riders and establishing what kind of things they want to see at those stops, and analyzing what shading options are going to be ideal for various stops around Valley Metro's different lines. So with that, we would love to take any questions you may have.
If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat below. But we're going to start with the first one listed. Are there sufficient resources and studies out there to research this, or do you feel that there should be more?
Yeah, I can answer this one. So actually, I think what we found was there was a surprising amount of resources, especially resources and reports specific to the Phoenix area on the subject of shade and thermal comfort. However, none were truly like specific to public transit in the Valley Metro. But we did find the information to be really interesting. One report analyzed using either urban forestry or photovoltaic canopies, which is essentially a metal canopy with solar panels on the top, and analyzing how if one or the other was better or acted as a better shade. And the report actually found that the PV canopies had higher thermal storage, which means that they absorbed more of the heat coming in than urban forestry. So while there are a lot of resources out and studies to research this, in terms of the shade aspect and the effects of shade on ambient and surface temperatures, there were none that were entirely specific to public transport.
Cool. Next question is what social media platforms did you primarily focus on?
We used Facebook and we also used Instagram. Those were our two major ones. We got a lot of responses after we posted it on Instagram, but we also shared it with classmates and also like friends that we knew that ride the light rail.
Yeah, generally this one was kind of interesting just because the social media platforms like our group was more privy to tend to be younger demographics, which may not exactly be who you're looking at when you're looking at the light rail. So we tried to get around that by using other resources as well.
Yeah, our main goal was to actually physically go out to the light rail stations. We just weren't able to do that as COVID-19 picked up.
So next question is did the survey take into account people who rely on the light rail as their primary means of transportation?
So this is something, if we had been able to go to the stops more, we would have wanted to interact with people and ask them. But since we just had this, this form as our way of adapting to the current situations, we really just tried to keep it very open-ended. So we asked people what their primary stop was, but we really don't know whether or not these are people's only method of transportation, or they use this as something optional.
The next question is kind of more of a statistical question, but the question is, what do you think would be needed to identify causation, or do you think that is not possible?
I mean, I definitely think identifying causation would be possible. To really get the cause, obviously, we can look at plenty of reports and establish that there is a correlation. I mean, generally people tend to think it's fairly obvious. If it's hot outside and you're going to be more comfortable in a shaded area, but at the same time, to make very expensive investments in local infrastructure, you can't just go off of opinions or, I think this way. So I definitely think it would be possible to identify causation. I think it would take a rigorous examination and kind of study of all the different light rail stops and kind of set up criteria for certain stops that are, very in need of shade, some stops that aren't doing terribly, and some stops that have adequate shade. So yes, I do think it would be possible to identify causation. I just think it would require rigorous kind of in-person studying of the stations themselves.
Right, and I think what that might look like is first establishing interview data and then doing, like you were saying, kind of a case-by-case, not only study, but also showing a change in the shade along the walk path, or the walk shed up to each of the stops, and then looking at how measurable that difference is in ridership at each given stop.
Cool. So this kind of leads into the next question. The next question is, did you guys actually go down to the light rail and specifically ask people who ride it for their thoughts about shade and ridership?
So that was initially our goal, but since we started the social distancing towards the second half of the semester, that became less and less of a possibility and less safe eventually to do. So we decided to go with this Google form instead, but our goal was initially to go and ask people in person, and we hope that in the future that's still a possibility.
I guess this is even a further follow-up question, but are you planning to continue with this project in the future beyond the survey to be able to do the in-person aspect?
I think several members of our team are extremely interested in continuing on working with Valley Metro throughout this different process as they work with you.
So the next question is, do you think the usage of the light rail would increase in the wintertime?
Yes, I definitely, one thing we kind of were analyzing with the use of the light rail, and partially was because us being ASU students in Tempe, a lot of the times we tend to look at the student demographics, which means in the summer, during summer break, and in the winter during winter break, you can see drops in ridership, and that is generally your student demographic. It's kind of hard to say because that was another aspect sort of the project, was looking at if there's a decrease in ridership in the summer, is it a result of the summer heat, or is it just a result of less people? People may not be working in the summer. People may have other means of travel in the summer. So I can't really, I don't want to speak on necessarily if I believe light rail use would increase in the winter. We were more analyzing the weather aspects, less so the seasonal aspects of the light rail usage.
So we have time for about one more question. If I didn't get to your question, no need to worry. We're going to do breakout rooms later on where we can answer more questions. But you're also more than welcome to ask your questions on the Facebook page and LinkedIn as well. So the last question is actually an idea. Do you think it would be effective to slap stickers / magnets of the QR code all over the light rail to collect survey data?
I think that's a great idea. We were trying to, get this out as much as we could on social media, but I think one of the best things, like you mentioned, is to go to the places where people are getting on the light rail, because they're going to see that as they're going there. It's the perfect demographic.
We actually did think of that at first, but again, as like the COVID-19 situation increased, we decided not to.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.